Welcome to Karma Chronicles. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin.
My name is Sarah, and for the longest time, I kept my professional life a secret from my family. I never told them about quantum solutions, the cybersecurity firm I founded, or the millions of dollars we were about to raise. They never asked, and I never volunteered the information. It was a typical family dinner, the kind that always feels like a mix of love, tension, and a little too much wine. My parents sat at the head of the table, my younger brother Miguel on my right, and my sister Carmen across from me. They all looked at me, but the look in my father's eyes was different. He didn't bother with pleasantries that night. "So, Sarah, when are you going to get a real job?" he asked, sipping his wine. I'd heard this before. My father was a proud man, and for years he had dismissed my career in technology. The fact that I was making a living off a screen in his eyes was about as impressive as running a lemonade stand. After all, I had a Stanford degree. He'd always thought I should be doing something practical, and yet here I was, 28, still making poor decisions as he saw it. "I have a real job, Dad," I said, pushing my food around my plate. "It's just not the kind you understand," he snorted. "Yeah, that's real. You're still chasing some startup dream. I hope you know there's no future in tech. You're never going to have stability." Miguel chimed in with a smile. "Yeah, Sarah. You know, sometimes I worry you're just going to end up broke and out of work. Have you even made a profit yet?" I wasn't surprised by the digs, but I was tired. Tired of explaining, tired of justifying. So I let the tension grow in the room for a moment, biting my tongue. My father turned to Carmen and continued his rant, ignoring me completely. "You see, Carmen, at least you're going into law. That's something we can all be proud of. A future that's stable, something to build on." I watched Carmen's face shift uncomfortably, but she didn't say anything. As always, she was the good child, the one who'd followed the script. She was the perfect match for my father's ideal of success, something I could never measure up to. I wanted to speak up, to defend myself, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I glanced down at my phone, distracted by the sudden buzz. It was an email from my assistant. "Sarah, I just wanted to let you know that everything's set for the IPO announcement. It's happening next week. Valuation is confirmed at $340 million. My heart raced. My company was going public. After years of hard work, sleepless nights, sacrifices, this was it. The breakthrough. I didn't say anything to anyone at the table. But I looked up, meeting my father's eyes, a quiet smile tugging at my lips. And before I could stop myself, I picked up the phone and answered the call in front of them. "Sarah, everything is set," my assistant continued on the other end. "The IPO is good to go. I'm thrilled for you. This is a huge milestone." I looked at my father, still stewing in his own thoughts, and said, "Actually, Dad, you might want to hear this." He raised an eyebrow, clearly irritated that I'd interrupted him. But I pressed on. "Quantum Solutions is going public. We're valued at $340 million. The silence in the room was deafening. Miguel, who'd just been laughing at me moments ago, froze. Carmen stopped chewing, her fork halfway to her mouth. My father just stared at me, his expression unreadable, the color draining from his face as he tried to make sense of my words. "What did you say?" "Quantum Solutions, my company. It's going public next week, with a $340 million valuation." There was a pause, then a tight laugh from my father. That's some joke, Sarah." "No joke," I said softly. "I'm the CEO. I've worked my ass off to get here. I didn't need anyone's approval or validation. I just needed to build it myself." Miguel was the first to speak after what felt like an eternity. "Wait, so you're the CEO of a $340 million company?" His voice held disbelief, his eyes wide. "What the hell, Sarah?" I nodded, feeling the weight of their shock hanging in the air like a storm cloud. "You've been sitting on this all this time?" Carmen asked, her voice filled with disbelief. "How long have you been planning this?" 5 years, I said quietly. "I started it right after I graduated. I've just never shared any of it with you. You've always doubted me, and I wasn't interested in hearing it." I looked directly at my father now, my voice calm but unwavering. "I know you didn't believe in me, Dad. You thought I was wasting my education, but I was building something real, something bigger than all of us." My father's face twitched. He wanted to argue, to dismiss me as he had so many times before, but now he couldn't. I could see the struggle in his eyes. The father who had spent years telling me I'd never amount to anything, now trying to reconcile that with the truth sitting right in front of him. After a long moment, he cleared his throat. So, what does this mean for you? It means I'm successful. It means I'm running a $1 billion company, and I don't need to justify it to you anymore. I stood up, wiping my mouth with a napkin. I'm not asking for your approval, but I think you can finally see what I've been doing. The room was dead silent as I stood there, waiting for their reactions. My father didn't say anything else. Neither did Miguel or Carmen. They just looked at me as if I'd grown another head. I had finally done it. I had proven them wrong. And for the first time in years, I felt free. Free from their doubts, free from their expectations, and finally, free to be me. I could hear the faintest murmur in the background, but I didn't need to listen to their thoughts. The truth was clear. I had created something big, something they couldn't ignore. And for the first time, they had no choice but to look at me differently. But I couldn't shake the feeling that, even with all my success, nothing would ever change between us. The sound of clinking silverware and the murmurs of my family faded into the background as I sat back in my chair, letting the weight of the moment settle over me. My father's disbelief, my siblings' confusion, this was the culmination of years of quiet sacrifice. I had spent 5 years living a double life, pretending to be someone I wasn't. To my family, I was the struggling daughter who'd taken a non-traditional career path. I was the one who couldn't find a job in the real world, despite my Stanford degree. Their criticism had stung, but it had also fueled me. It had pushed me to keep my ambitions hidden, to work in silence, away from their doubts and dismissals. While they thought I was floundering, I had been building a tech empire. Quantum Solutions wasn't just some cybersecurity firm. It was the future of data protection in a world teetering on the edge of a quantum computing revolution. I'd founded it when no one thought I could. My family, especially my father, had always believed I was wasting my time, a wasted education, as he liked to put it. Yet, here I was, the CEO of a company that was on the verge of going public, about to change the way data was protected in an entirely new digital age. I ran my hand through my hair, recalling the last 5 years, the months of sleepless nights coding in my tiny apartment, the constant self-doubt, the pressure of knowing that no one believed in me. I had no one to lean on, but I also had no one to prove anything to anymore. I had built this from the ground up, and now finally, I was able to let my family see the fruits of my labor, though I wasn't sure it would change much in their eyes. They had no idea what Quantum Solutions actually did. They saw a vague outline of my job, something tech-related, and wrote it off as another one of my whims. But what I had built was far beyond a career. I had created a solution that could change the world. My company focused on cybersecurity for infrastructures vulnerable to quantum computing. As quantum computing evolved, the risk to the digital world became a ticking time bomb. The very systems that governed our world, the ones we took for granted, were on the verge of being cracked wide open. That was where Quantum Solutions came in. We weren't just developing encryption. We were developing the encryption to protect data from quantum computers. It wasn't just about securing banks or corporations. It was about protecting everything, from personal data to national security. Every single line of code I had written, every business deal I'd made, was in pursuit of one thing: protecting the digital world from a threat that was still in its infancy, but growing exponentially. The phone call with my assistant had been the tipping point. The company's valuation was about to be revealed, but I knew that no matter how successful I was, my family would never understand. They hadn't seen the late nights, the sacrifices, the pain. They hadn't seen me sitting alone, wondering if I was making the right choice, wondering if I would ever get the chance to prove them wrong. I turned my attention back to the table. Carmen had been quiet, a look of shock still etched across her face, and Miguel was flipping through the details on his phone, trying to process what he'd just heard. I could see the skepticism in their eyes, the same skepticism that had followed me for years. "So, what exactly is it that you do?" Miguel asked, his voice breaking the silence. "Quantum solutions, cybersecurity. But what's the real story here, Sarah? It sounds big, too big." I took a deep breath. "We're developing quantum-resistant encryption," I began, my voice steady despite the nerves gnawing at me. "As quantum computing evolves, it will eventually be able to break through the current encryption systems that protect our data, everything from credit card transactions to government secrets. My company is building the technology to stay one step ahead of that. We're creating security systems that can't be cracked by quantum computers, which will ultimately change the way the world protects its digital infrastructure." Miguel blinked, processing my words. I could tell he was trying to wrap his head around the complexity of it. But you've been doing this secretly? He asked. For years? And you didn't think to tell us? Not even when you started getting real traction? I didn't think you'd understand, I said honestly. I didn't want to keep fighting to prove myself. Every time I shared something with you, you told me it was a waste of time, or you made jokes about it. So I just stopped. I wanted to build something real, not fight for validation. And honestly, I didn't think you'd believe in me until I could show you, so I kept it quiet. My words hung in the air, thick with all the years of unsaid emotions. I had shielded them from my success, not because I didn't want them to know, but because I knew they couldn't accept it. I had sacrificed everything to get here, and they had, in some way, made me feel like my success didn't matter unless they approved it. Carmen, who had been silent up until now, spoke. But Sarah, you were doing well before this, right? You didn't need to hide this from us. You didn't need to suffer in silence. I looked at her, feeling the weight of her words. I didn't suffer, Carmen. I worked. I invested everything. My time, my money, my energy. I poured everything into quantum solutions because I believed in it. I didn't need your approval. But it hurt, to have everyone doubt me all the time, to have my own family make me feel like I was throwing my future away. I had to prove this to myself before I could prove it to you, and now that I have, I just wanted to share it. I wanted you to finally see what I've done. A quiet understanding passed over Carmen's face. She opened her mouth to say something, but Miguel cut in. This is huge, Sarah, he said, looking at me with a new sense of respect. I didn't get it at first, but now I see. You really did build something that could change the world, didn't you? I nodded, the weight of my journey catching up with me. Yes, I did. And for the first time, they were starting to understand. The tension that had hung over the table, the skepticism, the disbelief, slowly, it was starting to shift. They were seeing me, not just as their daughter or sister, but as a businesswoman who had risked everything to create something that would protect us all. And maybe, just maybe, they were beginning to understand the depth of my success and the sacrifices that had come with it. The silence that followed my revelation was suffocating. My family, once so quick to judge, now seemed unable to fully comprehend the depth of what I had built. But I wasn't surprised. They'd never understood me, and as much as it hurt, I had long accepted it. My mother, in particular, was the hardest to read. She had always hovered on the edge of my life, offering support in the form of vague encouragement, but never truly taking the time to understand what it was I was doing. She had always assumed I was struggling, wandering without purpose. She had no idea the quiet work that had consumed me for the past 5 years. As we sat around the table, the weight of the revelation hanging between us, I could see the confusion and guilt clouding her eyes. She finally spoke, breaking the silence that had settled in. Sarah, I don't understand, my mother said, her voice shaky. You kept all of this from us, all these years. Why? We thought you were just struggling. You never shared your successes, never asked for help. I thought you were having a hard time. Why didn't you tell us? I could see the guilt in her face. She had always believed that I was struggling, that I was lost, that I hadn't found my place in the world, but the truth was far from what she had imagined. I had been building, working tirelessly, keeping my goals secret not because I was ashamed, but because I knew my family would never understand. I didn't tell you, I began, my voice even but firm, because you never believed in me. You all saw me as the girl who couldn't get a real job, the one who was wasting her degree. Every time I tried to share what I was doing, it was dismissed. So I stopped telling you about it. I stopped asking for your approval. I just kept working, building. I wanted to show you, not tell you. My mother looked away, her eyes welling with tears. I didn't want to hurt her, but the truth had to come out. She had never understood the weight of the sacrifices I had made to keep moving forward. I thought you were just being stubborn, she whispered. I didn't know how hard you were working, how much you were investing, financially and emotionally, into something that was so uncertain. Miguel, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. His voice was calm but laden with disbelief. But Sarah, why didn't you trust us enough to let us in? We could have been there for you, to support you. You shouldn't have had to carry all of this alone. I looked at him, feeling the weight of years of silence between us. He was right. I could have let them in, but I didn't. Because every time I had, I felt dismissed, undermined. They didn't see my work as valuable, just as a phase. How could I share something so important to me when they barely understood it? I couldn't, I said softly, my words heavier than I intended. Because I needed to prove to myself that I could do this, without your doubts, without your judgments. I needed to believe in myself first before I could ask you to believe in me. There was a long pause. My father, who had remained eerily quiet through the entire conversation, finally spoke. His voice was low, almost regretful. "I never thought you could do it," he said, the words hanging heavy in the air. "I always thought you were just playing at something. I wanted you to take a more traditional route, a job with stability, something we could all understand." He looked at me, his face strained, as if the words were coming out of him with great effort. "But I was wrong. You've proven me wrong, Sarah. I can't deny that." His admission hit me harder than I expected. For years, I had fought against his expectations, pushing through the doubts he had about my career path. To hear him finally say he was wrong, it was both freeing and painful. My father had been a huge part of why I had kept so much of my life private. His doubts had shaped my decision to work alone, to build something without asking for anyone's validation. But now, hearing him admit he was wrong, it felt like a weight had lifted, though it also reminded me of all the time we had lost. "But you've been successful now," Miguel said, his voice softer than before. "What about the people who helped you get here? The investors, the partners?" I smiled faintly, grateful for the moment of support. "I didn't have investors, Miguel. I started this on my own, with my own savings. Every dollar I earned went straight back into building the company. I didn't want anyone to doubt me again. I wanted it to be mine, all mine." That's incredible," he said, still processing the magnitude of it. "And now you're telling me that this company is worth over $2 billion? "Yes," I replied. "Quantum Solutions is now valued at over $2.8 billion, with over 280 employees and clients ranging from Fortune 500 companies to top-tier government agencies." The room was quiet for a moment as the reality of my words sank in. My family, who had once dismissed me, now sat in awe, trying to wrap their minds around the scale of what I had built. Carmen, still processing the information, leaned forward. "Wait a minute. So, when you said you had built something big, you weren't exaggerating?" "No," I said. "I built something that's integral to the future of cybersecurity. My team and I are developing encryption that will protect the world from quantum computing. It's not just a business, it's a global mission." For the first time, I saw genuine admiration in their eyes. They were no longer seeing me as the girl who had thrown away her future, the one who was playing at tech. Now they were seeing me as the CEO of a company that was changing the digital landscape, a woman who had created something vital for the security of global systems. The tension at the table shifted. There was no longer disbelief or skepticism, only awe and maybe a touch of regret. My family was starting to understand the depth of what I had accomplished. They were seeing me not as the sister or daughter they had written off, but as someone who had quietly and powerfully proven herself. And for the first time, I could feel the walls between us begin to crumble. The conversation turned heavier as the evening wore on, the weight of my father's realization slowly sinking in. He sat back in his chair, a silent tension hanging over him. It was rare for my father to admit he was wrong, and I could feel the emotional turmoil brewing within him. But there was more. Something deeper. "You know, Sarah," he began slowly, his voice rough, "I always thought your interest in technology was just a phase. You'd get over it. You'd find something more practical to do. I pushed you to pursue something that would make sense, that would give you stability." His eyes met mine, and there was a softness in them that I hadn't seen in years. "I thought I was helping you." His words hit me harder than I expected. They felt like the final pieces of a puzzle I'd been trying to solve for years. I had spent so long fighting against my father's expectations, rebelling against his constant push for me to pursue something practical, but hearing him admit this now, after all this time, it was a strange mix of vindication and pain. "I know you thought that," I said quietly, my voice tinged with emotion. "But you didn't see it the way I did. You saw me as someone who needed to follow a prescribed path, but I had to carve my own. I had to make this work, not just for me, but to prove that it was real, that this wasn't a hobby or some phase." My father shifted in his chair, clearly uncomfortable with the weight of his words. His eyes softened, and for a moment, I saw the man who had encouraged me when I was a little girl, the one who had nurtured my curiosity for technology long before it became something I could build a career on. "I remember when you first showed me that old computer of yours," he said, his voice now nostalgic. "You were so obsessed with it. You would stay up late, reading those books on coding. I never understood it. but I encouraged you because I saw how much you cared. I thought maybe that's where your heart was. I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. You did? And because of that encouragement, I believed in myself enough to push forward. Even when I faced all the doubt and the criticism, you taught me to go after what I loved. And that's what I did. His face shifted. There was regret there, but there was also pride, a mixture I hadn't expected. I had never given him the chance to really see the impact his words had on me. You've done something incredible, Sarah, he said finally. I see now what you were trying to build all this time, what you've accomplished. It's beyond anything I imagined. The words were simple, but they meant more than I had ever hoped for. My father, the man who had doubted me for so long, was finally acknowledging the scale of my success. It's not just about the money, Dad, I said, my eyes fixed on him. It's not even about the company's valuation. It's about protecting the world. What we're building at Quantum Solutions is about security, real security, the kind that protects people's lives, their data, their futures. This is bigger than me. Miguel leaned forward, clearly processing everything I had shared. His usual skepticism had faded, replaced by genuine curiosity. So, you're saying this work you've been doing? It's not just a company, it's integral to the future of security, of the digital world, he asked, the realization dawning in his eyes. I nodded. Exactly. The quantum computing revolution is coming, and when it arrives, it will shatter everything we rely on. Our banks, our governments, our personal data, everything. Quantum Solutions isn't just building the next generation of encryption. We're protecting the future of our digital infrastructure. Every bit of information we rely on every day is vulnerable, and we're the ones standing in the way of that. There was a long pause as my family absorbed the weight of my words. The room felt different now, the tension shifting from disbelief to something closer to awe. Carmen, who had been quiet for the most part, blinked, her face a mixture of confusion and newfound respect. This is bigger than I thought, she said softly. I always assumed you were just working on some tech thing, but this is about global security. I smiled, feeling the familiar mix of pride and relief. It is. I wanted to make a difference. And I'm not done yet. We've barely scratched the surface. The world is changing, and we need to be ready for it. My father, still processing the enormity of it all, shook his head. I thought I was helping you by pushing you towards something stable. But what you've done, it's more important than anything I could have ever imagined. You've built something that will protect us all. I could feel the shift in the room. The skepticism, the dismissals, all of it had started to melt away. My family, for the first time, was seeing me not as the girl who had taken a risky path, but as someone who had made a significant impact on something that mattered. It wasn't just about proving them wrong, it was about proving to myself that I could do this, and that my vision was valid. I leaned back in my chair, taking in the weight of the moment. My family, who had doubted me for years, was finally understanding the depth of what I had built. But it was more than that. They were beginning to understand why I had kept it all secret. It wasn't just about protecting myself. It was about protecting them too. I don't regret keeping this from you, I said softly. I had to focus on building it, on making it real. And now, finally, you can see what I've been working toward. Miguel, who had always been the logical one, smiled for the first time all evening. You've done something extraordinary, Sarah. And I think we're finally starting to understand what you've been doing all along. My father nodded slowly, his gaze softened. It's hard to admit, but I see it now, and I'm proud of you. Proud of what you've done. There it was, the first time my father had ever said those words to me. And in that moment, I realized that I had done more than just prove my worth. I had built something that would change the world. And for the first time, my family saw it too. The phone buzzed incessantly as I sat at the dinner table, and for the first time that evening, I couldn't ignore it. The messages were flooding in. Notifications from journalists, media outlets, and analysts eager to speak with me about quantum solutions. Forbes wanted me on their cover. CNN requested an exclusive interview. The Wall Street Journal had already drafted an article profiling my company. I could feel the heat of the moment, the weight of what was happening in real time, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I calmly set my phone down and looked up at my family, their eyes wide with shock. You really don't get it, do you? Miguel asked, his voice a little breathless. This isn't just about what you've built anymore. It's about what everyone else is going to see. They'll know who you are, who your company is. You're about to become famous, Sarah. I sat back in my chair, a quiet smile pulling at my lips. Famous? I repeated, raising an eyebrow. I've never been in it for fame, Miguel. Not once. Miguel stared at me as if I had just spoken in another language. What do you mean? You're about to be on the cover of Forbes? That's huge. You're going to make a lot of money, Sarah. Do you realize that? You're going to be wealthy, beyond what anyone could imagine. I'm not in it for the money, Miguel, I said gently, my voice firm with conviction. I never was. It's always been about protecting digital infrastructure. The work we do at Quantum Solutions? It's the kind of work that will save lives, protect nations, and ensure that the digital systems we rely on every day are secure. That's what matters to me. The room fell silent. I could see the wheels turning in my family's minds as they processed what I had just said. It wasn't about the luxury car I could buy or the high-rise apartment I could afford. It was about the responsibility I had taken on to protect the world from the future risks that quantum computing posed. Carmen, still visibly uncomfortable with the gravity of the situation, let out a nervous laugh. Right, but let's be real. You're going to make a ton of money off this, Sarah. That's not a small thing. You know that, right? I nodded slowly. I know. But money was never the goal. This technology, the encryption we're developing, it's not just for corporations. It's for everyone. We're fighting to stay one step ahead of quantum computing so that the infrastructure of the world, from financial systems to healthcare, doesn't collapse when quantum computers can break into them. That's why I do what I do. My father, who had been mostly quiet through the entire exchange, finally spoke. I never really understood it. You spent all these years working in secret, and now I see what it all means. You weren't just building a company. You were building something that could change the world. I glanced at him, noting the pride in his voice. For the first time in my life, he wasn't just looking at me as his daughter who had gone off the rails. He was seeing me as a leader in a critical global industry. Dad, I said softly, it's not just about me anymore. This is about global security, about protecting the data that runs our world. And yeah, I've made a lot of money, but my focus has always been on what this company can do for society. The fact that people are finally starting to understand that is what matters most. Miguel leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully. I never realized it was this big. I guess we all thought you were just tinkering in your little tech bubble, and now we see the scale of it. I nodded. I had to keep it quiet, Miguel. Not because I didn't want you to know, but because every time I shared what I was doing, it was dismissed. I couldn't risk having my dreams crushed again, so I kept building. I knew it would all come together one day, and it has. There was a long pause as my family absorbed this truth. The skepticism, the doubt, they were all fading, replaced by something new. It wasn't just admiration for my success anymore, it was understanding. They were beginning to grasp the weight of what I had accomplished and the impact it would have on the world. Finally, Carmen broke the silence. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm proud of you, Sarah. You really did it. Her words felt like a balm to the wounds I hadn't realized were still open. For years, I had been waiting for my family to see me for what I truly was, not just as their daughter or sister, but as someone who had created something vital, something that could change the world. And now, they finally did. I think we all owe you an apology, my father said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm sorry I didn't believe in you sooner, Sarah. You've done something incredible, and I'm proud to call you my daughter. I blinked back tears, surprised by the rawness in his voice. This was the man who had told me time and again that I was wasting my degree, who had always insisted that I needed to be more practical. And now, he was finally seeing me for who I'd always been, someone who was capable of creating something meaningful, something that mattered. I smiled at him. It's okay, Dad. I didn't need your belief back then. I just needed to believe in myself. Miguel nodded, finally understanding. I guess we were all wrong, huh? About you, about your future. You really have changed everything. I let out a slow breath, feeling the weight of years of skepticism lifting off my shoulders. It's not just me. This is the work of a whole team, and we're just getting started. As the conversation shifted to the media attention and the plans for the IPO, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction, not because of the wealth or the fame, but because I knew my family finally understood. They had always doubted me, but now they saw the depth of what I had built, and for the first time in my life, I felt fully seen. The phone call came unexpectedly, right in the middle of dinner, as if the universe had decided to remind me just how high the stakes really were. I had barely finished talking about the media storm when my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Director Matthews from the NSA. My heart skipped a beat when I saw the name. It was urgent. I excused myself from the table and stepped into the next room, leaving my family behind, all of them still processing what I had just revealed. Sarah, Director Matthews' voice was sharp and urgent. We need to deploy your latest encryption technology immediately. There's a national security threat. We've been monitoring an unprecedented quantum computing attack, and your algorithms are the only defense strong enough to handle it. Time is critical. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. The implications were vast. My company wasn't just a business, it was now a part of something far bigger, something integral to the security of the nation. This wasn't some corporate deal. It was a matter of protecting systems that kept the entire country safe. Understood, I said, my voice steady despite the pounding of my heart. I'll have my team prioritize this and get back to you with the deployment schedule. The line went dead, and I stood there for a moment, processing the weight of it all. My work had grown so much bigger than I ever expected. Quantum Solutions wasn't just a business. I was now part of the global defense against digital threats, and I had to protect it. I turned back to the dinner table, my mind racing, my thoughts a blur. My family was still there, waiting, some of them unsure of what to make of the quiet shift that had taken place in their perception of me. I walked back into the room slowly, gathering my thoughts, when my mother spoke, breaking the silence. "Sarah, what's going on?" she asked softly. I could see the concern in her eyes, her motherly instincts kicking in. I took a deep breath before answering. "The NSA called. They need our technology to prevent a national security threat. It's urgent. Our encryption is the only thing that can hold off a quantum computing attack that could potentially compromise government infrastructure, military systems, everything. We're not just building security for businesses anymore, Mom. We're safeguarding the country's most sensitive data." My mother's face drained of color as she processed what I was saying. She sat back in her chair, staring at me, her mouth slightly open. "You're telling me, Sarah, that what you've been doing all this time, what you've built, it's that important? To national security?" I nodded, the weight of the truth sinking in. Yes, it's more than just a company. It's a defense system. We're not just helping banks stay secure. We're protecting governments, military systems, entire nations from threats they don't even see coming yet. Her eyes welled up with tears, and she wiped them away, trying to regain her composure. I never understood, Sarah. I always thought you were struggling, that you were wasting your education. And now I see. I see just how wrong I was. I felt my throat tighten as I watched my mother break down, guilt and regret flooding her face. For so long, she had believed in the image of me as the lost, struggling daughter. She had no idea the scale of the work I was doing, the weight I carried. "I'm sorry, Sarah," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I should have known. I should have believed in you. I'm so sorry." I moved to sit next to her, reaching out to take her hand. "Mom, you didn't know. And honestly, I didn't want you to. I didn't want to bring you into this world I was building until I knew I could make it real. It wasn't about you or Dad not believing in me. It was about protecting you from the burden of my success. You wouldn't have understood the pressure I was under to make this work." She nodded, squeezing my hand tightly. "I see now, Sarah. I see how hard you fought for this. And I can't believe it's led to something this monumental. You've done something so important, and I didn't even know." My father, who had been quiet until now, leaned forward, his eyes wide with realization. I thought you were wasting your time, Sarah. I kept telling you to take a more traditional route. I pushed you to follow a career that seemed more stable, but this is bigger than anything I could have imagined." His voice trembled slightly as he continued. "You're protecting us all, aren't you? This whole time, I thought you were just chasing some dream, but you're saving the world from digital collapse." I swallowed hard, feeling the lump in my throat. "It's not just about protecting the world, Dad. It's about protecting all of us. The work we're doing at Quantum Solutions will change the way the world secures itself. And you were part of that. You were the one who got me started with computers when I was a kid. That's why I'm here today. You were my first encouragement, even if you didn't see it that way." The room was still, the weight of my father's words hanging between us. He had always thought of me as the kid who was wasting time, the one who should have grown up and got a real job. Now, he was seeing me as something more, a protector of the very systems he had always taken for granted. I never realized how far this would go, he said almost to himself. I see it now, Sarah. I see how much you've built. And I couldn't be prouder. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I forced them back. For so long, I had worked in silence, building something that could save the world. And yet, I had been hiding it from the people I loved most. Now, as they began to understand the magnitude of it all, it felt like a weight lifting from my shoulders. They finally saw what I had sacrificed, what I had fought for. And in that moment, I realized that their understanding, their newfound respect, was the only validation I ever needed. The evening was winding down, and despite the emotional weight of the conversation, something about the air felt lighter. My family had finally started to understand the depth of what I had accomplished, and with that came the release of years of hidden resentments and unspoken expectations. But now I was ready to give them something they hadn't expected. I had worked hard for everything I had, and as I sat there, looking around at the people I loved, I realized that I wanted to do something for them, not just to show them that I could, but because I truly wanted to. Mom, I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion, I want you to know that the success of Quantum Solutions means you'll never have to worry about money again. You and Dad can retire whenever you want. You won't have to deal with the stress of bills or finances. I want you to have the comfort you deserve. My mother looked at me, her brow furrowed, as if she couldn't quite process what I was saying. Sarah, Let me finish, I said gently. Miguel, I know you've always wanted to start your own law practice. I want to help with that. You've spent so much time working for others. You deserve to build something of your own. Miguel's eyes widened in shock. You're serious? I nodded. I've always been serious, Miguel. And Carmen, I know you've always had dreams of pursuing your academic goals. If you want to go back to school or take that time off to focus on your studies, I want to help with that too. This is about giving all of us the freedom to chase our dreams, no matter what they are. The money I've made is not just for me. It's for all of us. I could see Carmen processing my words, her expression a mix of disbelief and awe. Her eyes welled up and she shook her head. Sarah, I don't even know what to say. I always thought I thought you were wasting your time, to be honest. But now, she looked down at the table as if trying to absorb everything. I don't deserve this. You've always been the one doing all the work. How can we ever repay you? You don't need to repay me, I said, my voice firm. This isn't about payback. This is about giving back to you for all the years of doubt, for all the times you thought I was just spinning my wheels. I've been given the chance to do something extraordinary, and I want to share that with you. I want to make sure you can live your lives without any of the struggles we've faced. You're my family, and this success belongs to all of us. My father, still processing his own shift in perspective, spoke up quietly. Sarah, I don't know what to say. I spent so many years telling you to do something practical, to take the safe path. But what you've done is nothing short of incredible. I see now how wrong I was. I never realized how much potential you had, and I can't help but feel proud of you. His voice faltered a little, but I could see the pride shining through. I never thought you'd be the one to change the world, but you've done it. You've built something that's bigger than any of us. I felt a lump form in my throat, and for the first time, the weight of everything I had done felt lighter. My father's words, so rarely spoken, were exactly what I had needed to hear. In a strange way, it had been the final puzzle piece I needed. For so long, I had fought for this validation, this understanding. And now, for the first time, I could see that my family truly saw me for what I was. We were wrong, Sarah, my father continued, his voice thick with emotion. And I'm sorry for that. I'm proud of what you've done, proud of the woman you've become. I don't just see my daughter anymore. I see someone who has changed the course of history. The room fell silent for a moment. I couldn't look at him without feeling my heart swell. I had spent so long wishing for his approval, trying to get him to see me for who I was. And now, here it was. It's not about the money, Dad, I said, my voice thick with emotion. It's about knowing I've made a difference, knowing that I've protected the things that matter, people's data, their security, their lives. Carmen wiped away a tear, glancing over at me. I never realized what you were really doing, Sarah. I always thought you were just different, and I didn't understand it. I didn't get why you kept to yourself, kept your work private. But now, I see it. I see you, and I'm sorry for doubting you. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I had never expected an apology, especially not from her. It felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders, hearing her acknowledge what I had been fighting for all these years. I've always been there for you, Carmen, I said softly, and I will always be, but we all deserve to live our dreams, and I want to help you live yours. She smiled through her tears, and Miguel gave me a long, silent look, one that told me he was beginning to understand the depth of everything I had built. Thank you, Miguel said, his voice steady. I never understood what you were doing, Sarah. But now I see it. I see what you've sacrificed, what you've built, and I'm proud of you. I've always been proud of you, even if I didn't show it. I nodded, the knot in my throat tightening. Thank you, Miguel. I don't need you to understand. I just needed you to know that it was real, all of it. My family was finally starting to get it. They had always seen me as the one who had to prove herself, the one who was trying to make something of myself. But now they were starting to understand the scale of what I had done, and more importantly, why I had done it. The emotional reckoning had begun, and it was changing everything. As the dinner began to wind down, a quiet calm settled over the table. The emotional weight of the evening was still palpable, but there was a sense of closure too. My family had, in many ways, finally seen me for who I truly was. Not just Sarah, the daughter they had doubted, but Sarah, the CEO of a billion-dollar cybersecurity firm whose work had the potential to change the world. We were all sitting there, digesting the immense shift in perspective, when my phone buzzed again. This time, it was from an unknown number. I glanced at the screen, and to my surprise, it was a call from my former professor at Stanford. Hello? I answered, feeling a little odd receiving a call from him out of the blue. Sarah, his voice rang out, full of warmth. It's Professor Langley. I just wanted to congratulate you. I've been following your progress, and what you've built with Quantum Solutions is nothing short of extraordinary. I always knew you had something special in you. I felt a lump form in my throat as I listened to his kind words. Professor Langley had been one of the few who had encouraged my interest in technology when it first began to bloom, even back when it felt like a hopeless pursuit. And now, to hear him say that he had been watching my progress, that he saw the magnitude of what I'd accomplished, it was validation that I hadn't even realized I'd been craving. Thank you, Professor, I said, my voice thick. Your encouragement back then meant more to me than you could ever know. It's been a long journey, but hearing this from you, it's incredible. I'm proud of you, Sarah. Truly, he replied, his voice filled with pride. What you've done is groundbreaking. You've proven that the work we discussed years ago wasn't just a dream. You've made it a reality. As I hung up the phone, I turned to face my family. They were all looking at me with a mixture of awe, admiration, and, in my father's case, a hint of regret. But for the first time, there was no doubt in their eyes. They understood now, not just the scale of what I had built, but the significance of it. Carmen was the first to speak, her voice soft. I get it now. I really do. You've built something that's not just about money. It's about saving people, about protecting what matters. I'm proud of you, Sarah. My mother, still visibly emotional, nodded, wiping away another tear. I've spent so many years thinking you were lost, that you were just struggling to find your way. But you weren't. You were creating something that will change the world. I looked at my father, who was quietly reflecting on everything that had been said. He finally met my eyes, and for the first time, I saw no judgment, no disappointment, just understanding. I was wrong, Sarah, he said quietly, his voice filled with regret. I never believed in your path, but now I see it. You've done something that's more than I could ever have imagined. You've built something meaningful. I swallowed hard, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to spill. It's okay, Dad. I just needed you to see me for what I was doing. And now, you do. As the conversation shifted to the practical implications of my company's success, I realized how much had changed in such a short amount of time. For years, I had worked in the shadows, fighting to make something real. And now, finally, my family understood. Not just what I had done, but why it mattered. But the phone call had reminded me of something else too. The journey was far from over. The world of quantum computing was still unfolding, and while I had made a mark, there was so much more to be done. I wasn't done changing the world yet. I don't think any of us can really grasp what you've built yet, Sarah, Miguel said, his voice filled with a new respect. But I'm starting to get it, and I can't wait to see where this takes you. I nodded, smiling at him. We're just getting started, Miguel. There's a lot more to do, and I can't do it without the support of my family. My father, still processing everything, finally spoke again, his voice steady but filled with emotion. I see now that you've done it all on your own. You've made us proud, Sarah, and I'll never forget that. As the evening drew to a close, I realized that for the first time in my life, I felt fully understood. My family had finally seen me, not just as their daughter or sister, but as the woman who had built something monumental. For the first time, the years of silence, of doubt, seemed worth it. They saw the impact of my work, and they understood why I had kept it all so secret for so long. And now, as I looked around at the people who had once doubted me, I saw something I hadn't seen in years: pride. Real, unspoken pride. I'm proud of you, Sarah, Carmen said softly. I've always loved you, but now I'm proud of you. Truly. I could feel the weight of her words, and for the first time, I felt like I had truly come home, accepted for who I was and what I had built. The phone call from my professor had been the final piece. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the world I was changing. It was about global security. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what came next, I was ready for it. With my family by my side, I had the strength to face whatever the future held. The dinner ended on a note of unity, and as I left the table that night, I felt like I had finally found the peace I had been searching for. The ringing of my phone had become a distant background hum as I stood in front of the towering digital screens of the NASDAQ, watching my company's stock rise in real time. The words Quantum Solutions flashed boldly on the ticker, a reminder of everything I had built and how far I had come. The IPO was live. My company, once a dream sketched out in my tiny apartment, was now publicly traded, its valuation hitting a jaw-dropping $490 million. My personal stake in Quantum Solutions was worth millions more, but I barely noticed. The rush of numbers, the promises of wealth, it all felt like a blur in the face of something much bigger. This was the moment where everything had shifted. Around me, the atmosphere was electric. The buzz of phones, the chatter of analysts and investors. This was what success looked like to the world. But for me, this moment felt different. It wasn't the flashy media profiles or the congratulatory messages flooding my inbox that mattered. It was the work, the mission, the fact that my company wasn't just making money, it was changing the landscape of global security. Sarah, Miguel said from beside me, his voice quiet with awe. This is really happening, isn't it? You built this. I nodded, my gaze still locked on the stock ticker. Yeah, it is. But it's just the beginning, Miguel. The real work is still ahead of us. My father, standing a little further away, clapped me on the back. For the first time, there was no hesitation, no reservations. You've done something incredible, Sarah. We always wondered where you were headed, but now I see. It's bigger than I imagined. You've created something that will outlast all of us. His words, so full of pride, hung in the air, and I couldn't help but feel a wave of emotion wash over me. It was the validation I had longed for. Though it had come later than I expected, it was real. My father, who had always thought I was wasting my potential, now saw the magnitude of what I had built, and that meant everything. Carmen, standing close by, her face filled with a mixture of pride and disbelief, laughed nervously. I still can't believe it. You've been saying for years that you were going to change the world, and now you actually have. This isn't just about money. You're really doing it, Sarah. I smiled at her, feeling a weight lift from my chest. It was never just about money, Carmen. I've had the fortune to make a living, but this is about securing the future. It's about making sure that the digital infrastructure we rely on doesn't come crashing down the moment quantum computing hits. It felt surreal to hear myself say it out loud, to see my family finally grasp the significance of my work. For so many years, I had kept them at arm's length, unsure how to explain the intricacies of my field. But now, standing on the NASDAQ floor, surrounded by the symbols of success, it was clear. They understood. They saw that I hadn't just been chasing a dream. I had been building a lifeline for the future. As the hours passed, the IPO continued to soar, but my focus remained on something else. As much as the financial success mattered to me, it wasn't the end goal. The quantum computing revolution was just beginning, and I was at the forefront of it. My company, Quantum Solutions, had a long road ahead, and so did I. There were battles yet to be fought, vulnerabilities to be protected, and systems to secure. I had only just begun. Later that evening, we stood together in the lounge area of the building, overlooking the bustling city streets below. My family stood close, and I felt a sense of peace settle in, one I hadn't known I'd been missing. Do you realize how much you've accomplished, Sarah? Miguel asked, his voice soft, as if still processing everything. The way you've changed not just your own life, but the lives of millions of people. I looked at my brother, then at my father and Carmen, and I realized something. For the first time, I didn't feel like the outsider anymore. They weren't just accepting my success, they were part of it too. Their understanding, their belief in me, had changed everything. I've done it with all of you in mind, I said, my voice quiet but filled with sincerity. I wanted to make sure that when I got here, I wasn't alone. That's why this means so much. You've been there, even when you didn't fully understand what I was doing. And now, we're all in this together. The future was still uncertain. There were challenges ahead. The world of cybersecurity was evolving faster than ever, and the quantum threat loomed larger every day. But with my family by my side, I felt ready. I had proven myself, not just to them, but to myself. And now, we were a team. As the night drew to a close, we shared a quiet moment together, each of us taking stock of what had happened and where we would go from here. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen, not just as Sarah, the daughter or sister, but as the woman who had built something that could change the world. And that, more than anything else, was the greatest achievement of all.